for November 25th, 2024. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Acts has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Santiago, roll call, please. We're going to do the oath of office or roll call. Pardon?
Do the roll call first. Oh, we're going to swear in a new member too, right? So we'll do that first.
Yeah, let's do
We can do that first. All right, so what do we have? So Mr. Trachtenberg, Ms. Simmons, and Ms. Pollara to be sworn. Would you just come up, please? You can congregate in that corner over there and do it all together. I hope you guys practice.
They better have it memorized.
Yeah. All right, so if you would you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. When I get to the part about members, you'll raise your member and you'll just. All right, so the oath of allegiance, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United
and
States
in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me
On
God.
the official oath of office, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office of the Board of Adjustment,
all the duties of the Board of Adjustment,
regular member,
alternate member,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my
So
ability.
help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Congrats. If you would sign those, I'll take care of the rest. All right, thank you.
Roll call.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Ms. Simmons,
Here.
Ms. Pollara, Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Ms. Keller,
Here.
Mr. Ola,
I'm here.
and I, Sonia Santiago, here. Did I miss anybody?
Next matter is consideration for approval of the October 28th, 2024 minutes. Any comments on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have several resolutions, the first one being BA-14-23. Mr. Oler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a memorializing resolution with respect to an application filed by SLOC Acquisitions LLC, who applied to the board for preliminary and final major site plan and preliminary major subdivision approval and variance relief in connection with the construction of ultimately 13 single-family homes with associated site improvements for property located in the OSGU zone known as Lot 1, Block 5801, commonly known as 9 Springbrook Road. There was two D1 variances and a D5 variance associated with the application. And for the reasons that are set forth in the application, it was conditionally granted. There were several conditions in addition to our normal conditions. 37 conditions in all. I'm not going to, unless you want me to, read them all out. I think
No.
the board had an opportunity to review the resolution, so if there are any board comments, we can review that.
Okay, board members, any comments on proposed resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Move, we approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford,
Yes.
so moved.
Next resolution is BA-14-24. Mr. Oler.
Thank you. Another memorializing resolution with respect to an application filed by Shannon and Marshall Russo. The applicants applied to the board for permission to modify an existing non-conforming dwelling by constructing a one-story addition requiring side yard variance relief, combined side yard relief, and the expansion of a non-conforming structure. Property is located at 81 Chimney Ridge Drive, and for the reasons set forth in the resolution, the application was conditionally granted with our standard conditions and one additional condition indicating that the existing shed may remain in its current location. However, upon replacement, it shall be relocated to a permitted area, or the property owner shall return to the board for an appropriate variance relief.
Okay. Board members, any comments, questions about the proposed resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trachtenberg. Ms. Santiago?
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford,
Yes.
so moved.
Next, we're going to move on to our public hearings. Ms. Simmons, would you please join us up here? And we're going to go out of order. We're going to take BA-15-24 first. Okay. Ms. Santiago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Our next application is BA-15-24 Italia Duran, Block 3907, Lot 7, 153 Western Avenue in the RA7 Zone for Section C. Applicant proposes to enclose the existing open porch on the rear of the house and construct a second-story addition within existing setbacks. The applicant will also seek variance relief for the expansion of the existing non-conforming structure and to maintain the existing garage in its current location.
Okay, thank you. And we'll have them sworn in.
Yes, you're both going to testify, I assume, right?
Sure, I'm the engineer.
Okay, okay, yeah, we'll get to that, but would you both please stand? Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. And then just one at a time, just names for the record, please.
Italia Castillo Duran.
I'm Nicholas Colonna.
Your last name?
Colonna,
Colonna? Can you spell that?
Collonna.
Okay, and are you going to testify
Yes.
first? Yeah, okay. So would you just review for the board your professional background, education as well?
Sure, I'm a New Jersey licensed structural engineer. You want me to sit down too?
Sure, you can sit down.
Okay, so I'm a New Jersey licensed structural engineer. I'm also a home improvement contractor. I've been licensed for about 2008, I believe. I have a bachelor's degree in architectural engineering. I have a master's degree in structural engineering. And I've been doing lots of additions, renovations in the area.
Your licenses are intact?
They are.
Thank you. We'll accept you as an engineer. Please proceed.
Okay, yes, so what we're asking for here, they have a small deck on the rear of their home. I don't know if you have the drawings in front of you, but if you would look at the drawing N2, there's a little zoning drawing on the top of the drawing there. And we show in colored in red, if they have colored copies. There's an existing deck, a little porch in the back of the house there. They want to essentially take that in as part of the house. It is a total of 73 square feet, which we're converting from the porch to a part of the enclosed part of the main home. And then on top of that, we're going to build a second floor that just comes out flush with the back wall. So we're currently over the total amount of allowed impervious by 356 square feet, which is 4.5%. We obviously have a small lot here where our lot's only 50 feet wide, when a typical lot is 75 feet wide, obviously contributing greatly to our shortfall of our side yard setback and the impervious coverage. Go to the next page, we have the elevations. You're gonna go to page EL1. You will see that in the front proposed elevation, there's no visible changes. There's no changes being done in the front of the house. On the right side, there's a slight change just to the second floor and the roof line, which is just to make it all continuous. So it's just box squaring out the back of the house. The left proposed elevation, there's just a small change by boxing out that corner. And then the rear, obviously the whole rear face will be new, but is still in the same general shape as the general house was before the renovation was done. We're going to take a quick look at L1. That just shows the proposed basement, where we have the small continuation of the foundation in the rear left corner. It's labeled as a storage room. That's all that new addition will be.
Okay.
Page L2, that's the first floor. And you'll see that we're just squaring off the dining room to allow the kitchen and dining room to become a nice open continuous space to give them the room that they need for their proposed kitchen and still have the flow out to their nice backyard. And then finally, page L3, you will see that the upstairs rear bedroom is extended a little bit, and it allows them to have a very small but tasteful ensuite bathroom. So they're not really asking for a whole lot inside, just a little bit more space, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Couple of questions. So in your N2, you say that the existing lot is 7,854 square feet
Yes.
and required is 11,250. So it's about 30% undersized?
Yes.
Okay. And second thing I noted is that in the survey, if you're looking at the house, side of the house closest to the sideline where it says 6.2 at the front of the house, and it goes towards the rear, it says 5.8. So that's coming closer to the property line. And yet at the application, it says 5.8 when you close it all out. Shouldn't it be something like 5.6 or 5.5 or 5.4, just so like we don't have a 1 inch or 2 inch encroachment over the allowable setback?
Correct. The side yard line and the house line are slowly converging as you move backwards. So you're right, it would be within a few inches of that. It might be 2 inches less, because we're talking about an 8-foot difference there as far as
Right.
going back. So yeah, you are correct. It is likely closer to 5.7 or 5.6 feet.
Why don't we make it 5.4 and we don't have to worry about it? Would that be okay?
If that's
That's, I don't want you to have to come back and say, oh, we're an inch over.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
That works.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
All right. And the existing garage, that's going to remain there, is that correct?
Yes, that would be ideal. It's a nice sized garage. You have a lot of if children with some good stuff to store back there, and to rebuild that, obviously, that would be tough to get any kind of garage in the property if that ever came down.
Right. So board members, would you have any objection to a condition that the garage can remain where it is, violating the setback lines, but if the garage, for any reason, is destroyed or taken down, then you'd have to come back either to get a variance or move it?
Agreed.
Yeah, that
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? No other questions? Anything to add? No? Good answer. Okay, so, board members, any comments?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Wait a minute, I gotta go back up. Does any member of the public have any questions of the engineer? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Board members, any comments?
Pretty straightforward. It's the lot's hampered by its size.
Mhm.
And what they're doing, if the lot was of normal size, what they're doing is not out of range at all, not out of the norm.
Okay. Any members of the public wish to weigh in on this application? Seeing none, hearing none? Now we can,
I thought we did that already.
we'd ask if they wanted questions. I'm not gonna
Okay.
say if they want to make comments. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, any other comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
And this is as modified, correct? Got to say yes.
Yes,
With the condition with respect to the
Yes.
garage.
yeah.
Okay. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So move.
We're good. So we'll let them know.
Yep, good luck. I'll
Good
have
luck.
a resolution for you at the next meeting. Okay.
Okay. Next matter is BA 12-24. Ms. Santiago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Next. Where did it go? Next application is BA-12-24, OSBNJ, Order of St. Benedict of New Jersey, St. Mary's, Del Barton application. Lot 4501, Lot 201, 230 Mendham Road, the OSGU zone for Section C and D. You could use this microphone, too. Okay. Applicant proposes to construct a new student life center with other related improvements. A variance is required for the height of the structure.
All right. Can I have your appearance, Mr. Newmark?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. My name is Martin Newmark, the law firm of Borzio, Bromberg and Newman, and I represent the applicant. And I would ask permission to be seated if that's okay.
Sure, sure. Just for the record, so any member of the public would know, my son graduated from Del Barton in 2007. But it will not interfere with my ability to judge this
So you could
case.
hear the application and be impartial.
Yes,
Mr. Newmark, do you have any objection to the chairman continuing on the application? Do you have any objection to the chairman continuing? Thank you.
any member of the public have any objection? Seeing none, hearing none? Continue. Let's share.
Yeah, I just took this one page out.
Yeah.
I could fold this one.
Yes. All right, you may proceed. There's some more than I have. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Board members, let me first present you with a brief opening statement to give you an overview of what this presentation is going to consist of. This is an application on behalf of the Order of St. Benedict's, which most of you know as the Del Barton School. The school is located on 165 acres on the southerly side of the Mendham Road. Its street address is 230 Mendham Road. It has no residential neighbors to the south, to the east, or to the west. Its neighbors to the north are separated from the campus by the Mendham Road, and as will be demonstrated by the development proposed, will be located near the center of the campus, more than 1,500 feet away from the Mendham Road. The project for which approval is sought will allow for the construction of a new 126,000 square foot student life center. It will include a new gymnasium as well as a new kitchen and dining area, as well as some additional amenities, all of which will be described to you by the project architect, Stephen Aludo. It will also include an additional 79 parking spaces. The Student Life Center will replace an existing outmoded gymnasium. The development of the Student Life Center will not result in an increase in the student body, which has been relatively constant for the past several years at between 635 and 645 students in grades 7 through 12. Over the years, several approvals for the development of the Del Barton School have been processed through the planning board because until 2020, the zoning ordinance treated the school as a permitted use in the OSGU zone district. Site plan approval and variances, if necessary, were therefore processed through the planning board. In 2020, the zoning ordinance was amended to designate the school as a permitted conditional use with specific bulk or dimensional standards. With two exceptions, the proposed development meets all of the bulk or dimensional requirements in the new ordinance. The exceptions are the height of the building and the number of stories in the building. Because those standards are not met, the application for site plan approval with the required variances are solely within your jurisdiction. The ordinance limits the height of buildings in the OSGU zone to 2.5 stories and 35 feet. The proposed Student Life building using the ordinance methodology for determining the height will be 45 feet high and will consist of 4 stories. As will be demonstrated by the evidence that will be presented, although the new structure will be 45 feet tall, it will replace a building that is just slightly shorter than that proposed building. As will also be demonstrated by the evidence that will be presented, by reason of the fact that the highest elevation of the proposed new building will face a portion of the adjacent county park that consists of dense forest, the excess height will have no visual impact on adjacent park property. The witnesses that will be presented will be Andrew Smith, who is the project engineer, Steve Aludo, who is the project architect, John McDonough, who is the project planner. The PCC and the Environmental Commission have presented the board with reports. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, just exactly how you want those to be presented. Before I call my witnesses, is that something that you?
We could have the board engineer can summarize the TCC report for us, and if necessary, I know Kate wasn't there, but I'm sure she's familiar with it as well. All right. So before you do that, though, would you two both stand, raise your right hands if we're going to give testimony by you? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. And just for the record, names, please.
Sure. Kate Keller, Bill Price.
Dave Hanson, Assistant Borough Engineer and Board Engineer.
Thank you.
Okay, the TCC met on August 15th, and with what was already stated, the first paragraph of the TCC report basically outlines that the new Life Center will house the gyms, pool, bowling alley, squash court, dining hall, and the parking garage. And as part of this construction, the existing pool and gym building will be demolished as part of the proposal. It also stated that this project is fully conforming with the exception of the height, which exceeds the 35 feet height and 2.5 stories. So it's a D3 variance for 4 stories, not the 2.5 stories under the conditional use standards. Going on further, the TCC requested the following. Number one, the applicant noted that the proposed project will not increase the student population. The water or sewer usage is not expected to significantly increase because the majority of the current use exists on the site. We did look over the sewer report, the sewer calculations, and that is a true statement that the increase is not dramatic, and it doesn't raise an eyebrow to us. Item number 2 in the report, a waiver is requested for steep slope disturbance. The percentage of steep slopes specific to the project is to be provided as part of the testimony.
The applicant notes the majority of the steep slopes in the area were disturbed by previous construction and are man-made, and that is a true statement. C variance is required for retaining walls that exceed 6 feet. That's just a statement. We also requested that the proposed parking be striped with hairpins, or a variance is to be requested for that. The overall site parking requirements is to be provided under testimony, but the statement that was made about 72 additional parking spaces is true. The stormwater management report and stormwater maintenance plan were reviewed by myself and found to be in conformance with the requirements. I had no comments on that. We also required that all the lighting be dark sky compliant. I believe that's on the plans. All proposed landscaping is to be in conformance with the do not plant list, and that is also true. They did not put any additional do not plant plantings on there. And they were proposing to relocate a generator and propose a new generator, and they submitted the noise reports, which we found acceptable. And we deemed it conditionally complete, subject to those items being revised on the site plan, which they did.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, may I comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
And I know that we submitted in written form responses to the TCC report as Mr. Hanson just outlined, but I just want to make it clear that with respect to the request that the parking be striped, we have agreed to do that. With respect to the dark sky request, we have agreed to do that. With respect to the request that the landscaping be in conformity with do not plant requirements, we have agreed to that. And we have also agreed that we would comply with all noise requirements. And I think Mr. Hanson just indicated that he was satisfied with the report that was submitted by the project engineer. So we're not going to present testimony on that. If the board and the board's attorney feel it's appropriate to include in the resolution of approval, if in fact you approve this application, to have the dark sky and the do not plant and those items that we've agreed to included as conditions in the approval, that of course would be acceptable to the applicant.
And that's how we've done it in the past, and it would just be a condition of any approval.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'm not sure how the Environmental Commission report is presented to the board. I know that it has been presented, and I'm sure it's circulated to the board. And I know that we did on November 8th submit written responses with respect to that report. And again, I don't know how the board would like to proceed with respect to the presentation of that report or our comments with respect to it.
You know, I think your engineer can just comment on.
Fine, he'll go down the list, and so that everybody knows we have agreed with all the requests, suggestions, and requirements of the Environmental Commission. We also got a report from the fire folks, and they submitted some requests, and we have agreed in writing to all of those requests. And Mr. Chairman and council, that can be included in the condition of approval if it's approved, and that's acceptable to the applicant. So I think that is all that we need to do preliminarily. And with no further ado, and with your permission, I would call Mr. Andrew Smith, who is the project engineer.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, would you please stand? I see you are. Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And your name again for the record, please? And would you just review your educational background and professional background with the board, please?
Yes, project manager with Lyman Engineering, Environmental Services. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Delaware. I've been practicing land development engineering for a little over 7 years now, and I'm currently licensed in the state.
I offer the gentleman is an expert in the field of civil engineering.
So he's accepted.
All right, excuse me. Mr. Smith, do you have some exhibits that you'd like to go over with the board?
Oh,
part of your
Mr. Smith,
presentation?
I need that.
excuse me, yes, you need that microphone. You just press the button at the bottom, sorry.
We're testing your engineering degree right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, President,
Just
hold it.
for a second.
Hold it, you have to hold it for a second.
No.
I've done so well.
Oh, there it is.
It sounded like it just went up there.
Switch it.
Hello?
Hello?
There you
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Try this again.
Okay, proceed.
All right, so as Marty alluded to, I'm going to be presenting on a project that will take place on the Del Barton campus. So to start, this is Exhibit 1.
So is that in our package? Is that this sheet that's in our package?
That is a similar plan, but that is not this exact.
Okay, so then we're going to mark
It's
that.
been marked up, but we're marking it applicants 1, I think.
Yeah, it'll be
A1.
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 Okay, and just for the record, describe A1, please.
So the exhibit is essentially an aerial image of the existing Del Barton campus.
For the record, how large is the campus?
The property is approximately 165 acres in total.
Can you orient the board with respect to its location in relation to the Mendham Road and some other landmarks that they might be familiar with?
Yeah, so the property is formerly known as Block 4501, Lot 2.01, as noted in the Township of Morris tax map. And orienting ourselves on the exhibit, the property is situated with Mendham Road to the north, Sugarloaf Road to the south, an adjacent lot, Lot 2 to the east, and then the Lewis Morris Park, which is on Lot 202 to the west. And then just to draw your attention, so that is the overall property of the main Del Barton campus. And then highlighted,
I'm going to interrupt you and ask you to point to those different areas so the board will know exactly where you're talking about and what you're talking about. First, show them where the Lewis Morris Park is.
so Lewis Morris Park is at the top of your screen, which is cardinal direction west.
And the property to the bottom of the screen, that's the east.
That's the easterly direction, correct.
What is that?
It's an adjacent property that's wooded.
Is that county park? Is that county land?
I believe it is, yes.
And to the north?
To the north or page right is Mendham Road,
And
and to the south or page left is Sugarloaf Road.
and is that adjacent to the national park that we all know?
Yes,
All right, let me not interrupt you.
thank you. So, as I mentioned, the property, or the development boundary is shown in yellow on Exhibit 1, and now I'm going to transition to Exhibit 2, which is a zoomed-in view, essentially, of the existing conditions of the development area situated on
I want you to go back to
the property.
Andrew, go back to the first. I want you to point out on that exhibit where the proposed new gymnasium is proposed. It's in Lysa.
Yes, so it's in the yellow development boundary, situated in the central western portion or page top.
And can you tell us approximately how far that is from the Mendham Road?
It's in excess of 1,500 lineal feet.
I'm going to, again, try not to interrupt you. I can't promise anything. Go ahead.
No promises. All right, so transitioning to Exhibit 2, which again, as I mentioned, is a zoomed-in aerial view of the project area. What you'll see here is, again, outlined in yellow is the project boundary, which is comprised of approximately 6.2 acres. Again, the yellow area represents the limit of disturbance. And then situated within the project boundary is the existing Abbott Brian Clark Gymnasium, the existing outdoor swimming pool, existing senior lot, and then the surrounding portions of the campus. So So in a similar light, I'm now going to transition to slide or exhibit 3, which represents the same boundary with a rendering of what we intend to develop on the site. So situated within the footprint of the previously shown gymnasium, in tan is the proposed Student Life Center, which has an at-grade footprint of approximately 79,000 square feet. The building description and use will be further described by Steve, but just a note, below the western portion or the top half of the building, orienting yourself to the page, is structured parking below the usable space of the quote-unquote gym. As you'll see directly south and north of the building are entrances to level 1 and level 2 of the structured parking, as well as some reconfiguration of the existing circulation road as the current configuration is impacted by the building footprint. So what is shown here is the circulation road running parallel with the shared property line with Lewis Morris Park. And then in addition, we are adding and completing a circulation road on the backside of the building, or page bottom, or cardinal direction east, to provide, again, adequate circulation throughout the campus, as well as sufficient fire access around the perimeter of the building. So, and now speaking to parking, I did mention that there was 2 levels of structured parking. There's also 7 additional spaces directly south at the level 2 entrance, which is shown on the screen, for a total net gain of 75 spaces. So the Morris Township ordinance requires 2.5 spaces per classroom. Translating that to the campus, there's a requirement for 125 spaces across the campus. With this proposed development, the campus total will exceed 650 total spaces. So there's sufficient parking on the campus. In a similar light tied to parking, we are proposing 9 parallel bus parking stalls, 5 of which are situated directly west along the relocated or realigned loop road for sufficient access and circulation and parking for buses in the event that they need to pick up or drop off students at the proposed Student Life Center. And so that is 5 of the 9, and then there are 4 of the 9 located adjacent to Trinity Hall. So further north of the proposed development, situated adjacent to the existing visitor and teacher parking lot. So in the circular parking area, we're proposing 4 additional parallel bus parking stalls. So that is the general site development. I'll now touch on the landscape and lighting that will enhance the development.
Before we get to that, Andrew, to the west of the property line, you have a heavy yellow line. What does that represent?
So that is the limit of disturbance representative of the anticipated stormwater piping upgrade to upsize a stormwater pipe, which currently exists on the county park.
And you've been working with the county engineer on that to work that out between the 2.
Yeah, so we confirmed the existence of an access maintenance and drainage easement that the school has, that benefits the school on the county park property.
Do you have an exhibit that shows the relationship of the new Student Life Center to the used portions of the Lewis Morris Park?
I do.
Can we see that?
We can.
So Marty, that's A4?
Yes.
Well, it's marked as EX5, but we're jumping
But
around.
will it sheet EX5?
Sheet EX5, correct?
Okay, so A4 is sheet EX5.
Yes.
And you're going to describe what that is, please?
So yes, this is an exhibit we prepared, which starts to introduce the building height topic. And essentially what this exhibit shows is the distances of our proposed development, both horizontally and elevationally, to adjacent public spaces, which are mainly situated within Lewis Morris Park. So as you can see, the closest of the public spaces is approximately 400 feet in horizontal distance with an elevation change of minus 32 feet. So situated lower than the proposed development, which is noted here on the exhibit as Old Army parking. And the distances in elevation change are greater as you start to make your way around the exhibit looking at the other noted public spaces.
What about the other dimensions that you've got shown on that drawing?
The other dimensions to other public spaces?
Will you walk the board through those?
Yes, so to Deer Run parking, which is another parking lot, is approximately 750 horizontal feet with an elevation change of minus 88 feet, meaning it's situated 88 feet lower than the proposed development or structure. You have Doe Meadow Field, which is near the same elevation, 12 feet higher, but is also 2,200 plus feet away from the proposed building. And then you have Mendham Overlook, which is 90 feet at elevation, 90 feet plus, and then is approximately 1,700 feet or greater in distance.
And would it be accurate to say that the intervening land of the park is all heavily forested?
Yeah, so the existing land cover over those distances is consistent with woods and heavily vegetated.
Are you able to tell the board whether anyone using those public spaces would be able to see this project if it was built, despite the height variance that we're asking for?
So we don't anticipate visual impacts based on the construction changing from the existing condition.
I interrupted you. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question since we're going through these distances and everything right now? Well, I've got it on my mind.
Sure.
You said the old Army parking, is that
Yes.
adjacent to the dog park that's there? There's two parking lots down there. There's one that leads to there's a road that comes off to the left as you go up from Mendham Road. And it goes to the dog park, and there's also some Army vehicles parked on an upper lot. Is that the lot you're?
You are exactly right, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. I was out there yesterday.
So was I.
Okay, continue.
All right. So I'm going to rewind a bit now. So I hit on most of the site development discussion points. I will just close the loop on site development with the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, the site circulation road is needed to be relocated closer to the park property as it is in conflict with the proposed building footprint. In a similar light, the existing utility mains on campus run under that circulation road, and therefore with the relocation of the road, we will be relocating the existing utility mains. And from there, we will then service the new building with water, gas, and the overhead electric will service the proposed building. As Marty had introduced earlier, we are proposing a backup generator for the building, and then we're also relocating the backup generator, which services the Stevens Science Wing, both of which will comply with local and state noise ordinance for noise throws on adjacent properties. So I'm now going to transition to EX4, which I guess would be A5. And what this rendering shows is the proposed stormwater management features that we are proposing as related to our proposed development. So as shown in green, so as a result of the development, as I mentioned earlier, there are 6.2 acres of land disturbance, which coupled with the fact that we have a 0.08 acre or 0.8 acre increase in impervious coverage, we then trigger local and state stormwater management requirements. However, I will note, although we have a 0.8 acre increase in impervious, we are reducing by 0.2 acres the vehicular impervious threshold, which is a benefit right off the bat to water quality runoff. In any light, we are required to meet local and state stormwater management requirements, and therefore we are proposing 2 bioretention basins, which are colored in green, one directly west of the proposed building and one directly south of the proposed building in the footprint of the existing outdoor pool. And then 2 subsurface stormwater management basins, which are shown in blue, are located below the road section within the footprint of circulation roads. So with the installation of these 4 stormwater management facilities, we can then meet the local and state requirements for stormwater quantity, quality, and also achieve the groundwater recharge requirements based on the project disturbance and land cover. And I'll lastly note, although not required at the time of submission and design, we did anticipate the pending change with the increased stormwater depths, which is now in effect, and the project has been designed to comply with that recent change in stormwater regulations. And now I will transition. This is A6, which is a rendering of the proposed development. This is standing in the quad, looking at the new development. And this will be the segue into the architectural testimony, which you'll hear from Steve, unless there are any questions at the moment for me.
I have a good question. Aside from the number of stories and the overall height of the building, which brings us to the zoning board as opposed to the planning board, we do need C variance relief with respect to a retaining wall, do we not?
Yes, that's correct.
Would you address that, please?
Mr. Newmark, when you're asking questions, could you speak closer to the microphone so it
I
gets
will.
picked up by the recording? Thank you.
Okay.
So to address the question, the answer is yes. The township ordinance does not allow for walls or fences in excess of 6 feet in height when located in rear or side yards. So we are proposing a wall with a maximum height of 10 feet. The wall elevation varies, but at its peak, it's 10 feet in height. And we are proposing this along the relocated loop road between the common property line between the Del Barton School and the Lewis Morris Park. The reason being, one, is to provide adequate circulation around the site, not only for site circulation, cars and buses, but for fire access as well. And additionally, it's to limit disturbance and vegetation disturbance, tree clearing on the park property.
Could the project go forward with a retaining wall that was only 6 feet? What would happen if that had to be adhered to?
The roadway configuration, slopes and elevations would not be sufficient to provide circulation around the building or campus.
In your opinion, is this a better planning approach to the use of that particular area?
Yes.
To go to the 10 feet as opposed to the.
To maintain adequate circulation, both for campus use and fire access, it is required.
Now, we also require some relief with respect to steep slopes, do we not?
That's correct.
Can you tell the board about that and why you think we're entitled to that relief?
So there are steep slopes represented, or there are steep slopes within the subject boundary, mainly located within the footprint of our proposed building, some of which are situated within the realignment footprint of the circulation road. So the disturbances are required to either construct adequate circulation or construct the proposed footprint of our building. Based on our geotechnical investigations that we conducted both for structural and stormwater purposes, it is our opinion that the subsurface conditions in these footprints are resultant of past construction on the campus. Therefore, they're man-made and essentially construction spoils. We don't feel that they're naturally occurring, and the disturbances won't create a negative impact for runoff associated with the disturbances.
In your opinion, for those reasons, is that relief warranted?
Yes.
I have nothing further, thank you.
So,
I'm
just like,
sorry, forgive me, I do have something for you.
oh,
You have the environmental report available to you?
Yes.
And your response to it?
Yes.
Could you tell the board the issues that were raised by the Environmental Commission and your favorable response to each of them?
So I guess I'll raise, there were several comments made by the Township Environmental Commission. In general, we took no exception to any of the comments. We will propose a fully conforming planting scheme with the New Jersey Do Not Plant list. We will propose a fully conforming planting scheme with native species. And we will meet or exceed the solar capacity, which is on the existing gymnasium on the proposed building. I think that highlights the main concerns of the Environmental Commission.
So just to sum it up, with respect to each of the requests, suggestions, or requirements of the Environmental Commission, the applicant is prepared to go along with them all.
Yes, we will fully comply with the recommendations.
And the resolution of approval, if the board sees fit to approve this application, can include those as conditions.
Correct.
Now I have no further questions.
So the new circulatory road is going to be where the, you refer to it as the senior lot,
Yes, I believe that's generally used for senior student parking.
but it's there's two parking lots. There's one that's circular or semicircular, and the other one is a drive-in, drive-out lot that is further down the hill from the proposed building. Is that correct? Or the
Yes.
existing building?
Yes,
Okay, and the part of the steep slopes is the slope between the existing circulatory road and the senior lot,
yes,
and that's a major part of the 25% slope?
yes.
Okay. And you said that the building would hardly, I want to say your exact words, you said hardly be visible from the military parking lot?
I don't anticipate any visual impacts beyond what exists today.
Okay, so how would the roof of the proposed building line up with the roof of Trinity Hall as far as being height differential?
So we have an exhibit that'll detail that fully, which Steve will present. I don't know if
Okay.
you,
Mr. Chairman, the
Architect will deal with that? Okay.
yeah, we have a very nice rendering which details the peak elevations.
Okay. I just want to, when I went to the site on Sunday and I went down to Lewis Morris and I went down to the dog park. I could see, if you really squinted, Trinity Hall from the area right where those two the road coming in divides and it starts going down a slope towards the dog park. Right at that location, if you stop before you get to the end of the parking lot, you can see Trinity Hall barely. And this is with obviously no leaves on the trees. Most people would be looking where they're going as opposed to looking up. I could also see a portion of the existing building just a tiny bit. You had to know it was there in order to see it.
we had the same experience, you and I.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that how much more of an increase in visibility it is to that lot, because I don't
Sure.
believe there's any trails in Lewis Morris between
That's
the
correct.
proposed building and the dog parking lot. All the trails are further west. And,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah, so further on in the presentation, Steve will present an exhibit which will show the peak elevations of existing and new buildings.
okay. Board members, any other questions?
Just verify for me, you're looking for one additional foot to what's already there. So the new one shouldn't be that much more obtrusive than what you saw.
Well,
1 foot.
no, it's not.
Well, I
So-
think you're gonna hear from the architect precisely what you're looking for.
Yeah, because it's going to be moved forward, so it's closer
Right,
to the
okay.
slope. But height-wise,
Height-wise.
but any other
It's
questions?
4.7,
Yes.
4.57.
I have a question regarding your statement on the parking. I
Yes,
want to be sure I understood that. I thought you said that the amount of parking required by ordinance is related to the number of classrooms, which would give 160 some parking spaces, whereas this will increase it to over 600. Did I hear that correctly?
so the total campus parking will be increased to a total value of 651. We're not proposing 650 new spaces.
No, I understand
So
that.
the township ordinance So Delbarton is both a middle school and a high school. Middle school, I believe, is 1.5 spaces per classroom. High school is 2.5 spaces per classroom. That I believe is the ordinance, the township ordinance. So if you conservatively assume the entire school is a high school, it'll produce a higher parking count requirement, which at 50 classrooms, I believe was the number. The total comes to 125 required spaces. We are increasing parking by 75 total spaces, but for a net or a total on the campus of 651.
So is the 150 or so parking spaces a minimum or a maximum? What I'm trying to get at is
It's a minimum.
it's a minimum.
The ordinance requires the minimum.
Okay.
And we have in excess of the minimum, far in excess to provide adequate parking for the
There's no
campus.
maximum.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other board members with questions? Any members of the public with questions? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Next witness, please.
Thank you, Mr. Aludo, please.
Thank you.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
And your name, please?
Stephen Aludo, STEPHENALUOTTO.
Mr. Aludo, would you give the board the benefit of your credentials in the field of architecture?
I am a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I have maintained professional licensure in architecture for close to 38 years.
Have you appeared before the boards in this municipality previously?
Yes.
I offer the gentleman as an expert in the field of architecture.
He's accepted.
Thank you. Mr. Aludo, you have some exhibits that you'd like to use to
Yes.
show the board what they're interested in hearing?
Yes, I will. If I may, I'll begin with Exhibit EX6, which Andrew referenced as a rendering. This rendering depicts a view from the campus main academic core of the campus quadrangle and is in the same placement as the existing building. So in terms of the campus planning, this is a fitting placement of the building to enclose that outdoor space, an important part of the campus. Continuing on with Exhibit EX7, and this was submitted, this is the main level of the building. As was pointed out earlier, this is a 4-level building. The Student Life Center, it contains a series of athletic facilities, indoor athletic facilities that I will walk you through. In addition to that, it contains the main dining facility for the campus. The current dining facility is located in the basement of the Abbey, and its size and condition is proved to be inadequate for current day operations. This new dining facility will allow for 2 lunch seatings as opposed to the 3 lunch seatings that need to occur in the current facility. The building also provides enhanced recreation and wellness facilities for the students. So the purpose of this building is as much about student life holistically as it is about competitive interscholastic athletics. This is the main level that is accessed from the main entry from the campus quadrangle. And on the upper portion of the plan, we see the main high school gym, a middle school gym on the other end of this wing, with the support locker room facilities and coaches facilities on that side. There is a gallery, which is a glorified term for the lobby for the building that provides pre-function access to all of these facilities. And on the other side of that, or the lower portion of the plan, we see at the entry the new dining facility. We see squash courts located here in the center with green, and then a natatorium with a pool facility with an Olympic-sized swimming pool and the requisite support and locker room facilities for that pool structure. I might point out that operationally and logistically, this project is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases, such that the existing gym, which essentially occurs more or less under the footprint of this lower wing, can remain operational while the northern wing, or the ring on the upper portion of the plan, is constructed to provide 2 new basketball facilities, 2 new basketball courts. The existing gym, also, we had conducted feasibility studies. The size of the gymnasiums in this building is inadequate, does not meet current day standards. In addition, the support facilities are in a very old building that is not, has accessibility issues, and logistically is not feasible to renovate. So notwithstanding, the existing gym will stay up, while phase 1 shown on the upper portion of this exhibit, which is EX8, essentially EX7, but now showing the phasing line of phase 1 to phase 2. On the upper right-hand corner of this plan, you can see the footprint of the existing science pavilion. And I would go back to exhibit EX6, because you can see the science building here, the corner of it, and it's shown relative to its height and massing, similar in terms of its view from the quadrangle. I'll now go to exhibit EX9. EX9 is the upper level, the second level above the main level of the building. And because of the volume required for the gymnasiums and the natatorium and squash, the white areas in these plans are essentially 2-story high spaces to accommodate those activities. The dining room has an upper level that will be designated for faculty dining, other additional support space for the kitchen, and then on the upper level between the 2 gymnasiums will be a wellness center for general use by the general population and student body of the school. And on this upper level, we have a small viewing area that looks down into the pool area. Now we're going to go below the level, because below the main level are 2 levels of parking. This is the first level below the main level, in which we have 76 parking spaces, which are on a structured parking deck that occurs below the 2 gymnasiums. And then essentially in the basement or below the main level of phase 2, we have a bowling alley, again, for student wellness and activities, along with some storage space and the mechanical equipment that serves the pool facility.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
The parking area consists of 70, how many spaces?
76 on that.
76 spaces. Will that interfere or involve any impervious? Will it increase the impervious surface of the property?
Relative to site calculations, no, because this is elevated parking. This is an elevated parking deck. And I would point out, as Andrew indicated earlier, because of the way that the grading ends up, the elevations of the grade, this upper level deck is at the same level of the entry and drop off to the science pavilion. So there's no ramp or warped slab required for this parking structure. This will be accessible at grade from the north end of the building. And then moving below that, we have another level of parking. However, this is technically parking at grade. This is on-grade parking below the building. So when you refer to this building as a 4-story building, what's pointed out here is this first story or first level of the building is actually at grade. There are small components of built structures to allow for exiting out of the building via staircases and a pump room for the fire suppression system and some other services for the building. Similarly to the upper level, vehicular access to this at-grade parking from the south end of the building will be at grade again, so no ramping is necessary. I'll now move on to the exterior of the building. And shown here on exhibit EX12 are 2 elevations. The top elevation, or the north, this is the elevation that is dimensionally accurate of the same view that you saw in the rendering previously. The building is proposed to be in context with the existing buildings on campus, which are, some are brick, stone, and a series of large glazing systems, windows on the building. So what's shown in close to red here would be the brick. The large gray or tan expanses, that would be an architectural panel. This is a modern system that emulates stone, similar to the Science Pavilion. However, given the volume of the spaces, this provides for far more energy efficient construction for these envelopes to provide a more efficient envelope operationally for the school. The elevation below that is the west elevation, and I'll reference this again in a few minutes. This is the elevation that was in question prior to that is seen from views from the west. And you can see here where the two large masses here shown in gray, those are the gymnasium areas, and below that we see the two levels of parking. So this is the only elevation where all of that is exposed, given the way the grades work out on here.
That faces the park.
This faces the park, correct, to the west. This is the view. If you're looking east from the park, this is the elevation you would see, and we will get back to that in a few minutes. But first, I would like to show you the south elevation. So this is an elevation that would be taken longitudinally through the site. And you can see here, as Andrew, well, the laser pointer doesn't work on a screen, the retaining wall up at the top right of this elevation, that is where the grade increases. So there's a very, very low profile portion of the building here, but that's where that retaining wall will need to occur to provide circulation around the building. And as the grade comes down, you can again see the view from the south of the two levels of parking with the gymnasium above it. The elevation below that is in fact the east elevation. This might be referred to as the back of the building, or that which faces the Abbey up the hill. And this is really the service end of the building, with the exception of the dining area that has views out to the existing Italian gardens. And the final exhibit that I'll refer to is EX14. And this is where we've taken a portion of that, the entirety of that west elevation. And you can see here, which is dotted superimposed over this elevation, is the profile of the existing gymnasium.
Got those red dashed lines.
The red dashed lines, yes, correct. So to go through some of the numbers, if we take, according to ordinance calculations on average grade, the building is referred to, because this is to be exact here. Our average grade datum was taken at 502.22 feet above sea level, and that provided the datum for calculating a building height that is just below 45 feet. Actually, it's 44 feet, 10 inches versus the ordinance requirement of a calculated 35 foot height. What's important, though, is refer to that datum and the entry level of the building, which we will match that of the existing gymnasium, because, of course, as this is utilized during the construction of phase one, the height of the proposed building would be 37 feet 6 inches above the main level, whereas the existing building gymnasium is 36 feet and 6 inches. So the new building is, in terms of a pedestrian view, is 1 foot taller than the existing building as it sits today. Below that, on Exhibit 14, you can see a full elevation that from the right to left shows the proposed Student Life Center a slight gap where the drop-off occurs for the science building and access to the north of the garage. You see the Science Pavilion, Trinity Hall, which is a 3-story structure, and then the library building at the north end of this elevation. So you can see here, as dimensionally correct along with the proposed elevations in the proposed design, that we are essentially 1 foot higher than the existing gym and very close, in fact, lower than some of the elevator towers on Trinity. But you get the relationship of that entire elevation looking east from the park to the west.
Do you have anything else to add to it?
That completes
Let me ask you
testimony.
this, was, when you were asked to undertake this project, were you told that there was an anticipation of any change in the student body?
No, none whatsoever, no change.
It's simply to accommodate the existing number of students that have there now and have been there for a while.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Board members, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
When you think about the pool, it's now going to be an indoor pool. And when I looked at that the first floor plan, I didn't see the pool mechanical room, but you said that that's a level below
It will
it?
be below, correct.
Okay, all right. And then in the event that we have to dump the pool for cleaning or what have you, where is that water going to be going?
But I'm not qualified to answer that,
Okay.
but presumably it would defer to Andrew.
Okay, so for the record, Andrew.
I'll respond. In the event we needed to, we'd get a clean water discharge permit and dump the pool accordingly.
Okay.
To where?
Wherever we have permission to dump it with the approved clean water discharge permit.
Do we know if that's been done before with the outdoor pool? Whether they've dumped it to clean it and then refill it?
I do not.
Okay.
Mr. Aludo, you may or may not know this, and you kind of suggested that maybe you don't, but given my experience with a pool, the pool water is never replaced, it's recirculated.
I was going to mention that. In my experience with other similar facilities, I'm not aware of the pool having to be emptied.
Do we know
Never
what,
empty.
do we know what
Right.
kind of pool is it? Is it going to be a bromine or a chlorine pool or?
That's not determined at this point, but I'm fairly confident that the school would elect to have the most environmentally
Yeah.
responsible and maintainable system that's available.
It's potentially possible. You know, I've courted it on campus where we've had a pool and not often did we have to dump it, but occasionally we had to dump it. And we switched chemicals to minimize that. So that's important. But it would be helpful to know exactly where that water is going to go.
Down the drain.
Yeah. Indy pool gets drained.
Indy pool gets drained.
Every year.
The outdoor pool must get drained every
They
year.
do.
Don't you think?
All of them.
The outdoor pool, the existing outdoor pool must get
But then
drained every year.
The pools in town only get drawn down halfway.
Yeah.
Right,
And then they get covered.
right.
And in the springtime, they turn the hydrant on and they fill
Fill
it
it
back
back
up.
up.
But it's not out of the realm for pools, large
No.
pools to be drained, Picatinny drains.
Yeah, I don't know where we dump or where we pump to on the Ginty and the
Streeter.
Streeter.
Streeter pool. I don't know where they get them to.
Well, we better figure that out.
I asked Mr. Hanson whether he knows, I think that Marstown Bears has a pool, does it not?
I don't know.
It does,
Does it?
yes.
I know they do.
But this is out of our purview for this.
That's out of our purview. We're not gonna,
I would say that, you know, that's, I'll let Andrew speak to it if he wants to, but I think that's one of the purposes of that permit via NJDEP is when there is or whoever you get the permit from, is when there is some kind of like an emergency situation. You don't always have a plan to deal with that much water, so they try to, so that's why they follow their directions in case it does happen.
Well, certainly the resolution of approval can contain a condition that we would do it in a way that is environmentally appropriate and consistent with any rule of any agency, we certainly do that. I have not emptied the pool in my house for 25 years. It evaporates, and you fill it up, then you circulate.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Hanson? Any questions? Any questions? Members of the public, any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion.
All right.
Next witness.
That brings us to Mr. McDonough.
I could pull it up off my email if you want me to do that.
John, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Would you give the board the benefit of your credentials in the field of planning?
Sure. Hi there, everyone. Again, John McDonough for the record. I'm a licensed professional planner here in the state of New Jersey. That license is current. It's in good standing. I get to testify throughout the state on a nightly basis. I've been here many times as well. I'm also certified AICP. That's a national certification as well, both of which are current and in good standing.
Thank you. I offer the gentleman as an expert in the field of planning.
Accepted.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know, Mr. Newmark, just for future occasions, we have amended our bylaws so that any reports from professional planners should be submitted at least 7 days in advance. But we'll make an exception because his application was already pending. When
I
that,
was not aware of that. I'm sorry.
okay,
Good idea.
yeah, thanks. You may proceed.
Thank you. Marty, did you want to lead me off or just dive right in?
No, you can dive right in.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to get on the screen here some photos that we actually took today. So you're going to get some, as close to real time as possible, photographs of the site in the bird's eye. So you'll get a 3D
You want to
perspective.
circulate this?
So for the record, is there more than one there?
Can you
For
put
the
those up
record,
on
it's
the-
going to be 4 pages. They're
4
stapled
pages?
together.
All right, so that 4-page group of photos will be A15.
Yes, okay.
And are you able to put those on the screen?
I think we're getting there.
Should ask them. Steve, are you able to put them on the screen?
So it looks like everybody has A15. Again, these are drone photographs that were taken of the subject property this afternoon. The first sheet of A15 is going to be a view of the site looking to the east, and I've put a little yellow arrow. Thank you, Steve. A little yellow arrow in there where the proposed improvement is going to be. You heard through Andrew's testimony, we're dealing with a pocket of about 6 acres on a 165 acre campus here. So we're dealing with a very small portion of the campus. Again, somewhat of an infill development that is going to leave the majority and the core of the campus intact. This is going to, and certainly is intended to, enhance the academic mission of the school. You've heard about the enhancements through Steve's testimony, the overall enhancement of wellness, the dining environment, the overall upgrades of the facility as well, within a pocket that, as you heard through council at the outset, is 1,500 feet away from Mendham Road, and part of Del Barton's continued commitment to provide for an enhanced educational environment for the students and the staff who go here. You can see the field house building, that was the rec building that came in as part of the recreation improvements as well as the athletic improvements, and now this relates to the, I'll say, the academic core of the campus as well. Again, remote essentially from anything, including the park as well, which would be in the foreground from this particular vantage point. We've got separation by vegetation, by grade, and of course, horizontal separation as well. That's the first sheet. Second sheet is just sort of a panned pan to the northeast, again, giving a sense of the mass and scale of the buildings as well. Again, you've got Trinity Hall immediately to the left, which will be the dominant feature, the taller feature, as you just saw through Steve's exhibit, than where this proposed building is going. You also get a sense from this vantage point of where the grade starts to drop off from the inner ring road to the student parking lot on the lower level as well. We're dealing with a grassy area here, not a substantially treed area. So to the extent that the applicant is asking the board to move on relief for steep slopes, you can see that this is not going to be an area where there's excessive earthwork or tree clearing to effectuate what the applicant is looking to do. And this is a view looking back towards the park. Again, you get a sense of what the applicant is doing here is working with a rugged terrain. On the uphill side, we would have an otherwise conforming view in terms of the overall height, the number of stories. It's on the downhill side when we start to drop down, as you saw through Steve's elevations, where that relief kicks in for 4 stories and the height that rises up to slightly above the buildings that are there presently. Again, you get a sense of the reverse view of what you see from the park. That goes towards what the chair was saying earlier of how difficult it is to see from the park up the hill towards these buildings as well. And then finally, you get a view that yours truly actually took. I don't fly the drone, but I did take this picture from the ground, again, to show how the grade drops from the particular building location and how the applicant is working with the terrain here to retrofit the building into the landform that's there. We're going to pull the building closer to fill this surface parking lot. That will effectuate the need for a wall on the downhill side. As you heard through Andrew's testimony, again, it's going to be on the downhill side, on the park side, which will optimize and maximize tree preservation or impact on the low side, create safe circulation, and avoid the redundancy of a parking area that spills off of a ring road. This is going to be one concentrated flow, which we think goes towards the planning goal for the free flow of traffic. Just take you back to the beginning to underscore, again, the minimal, if any, impact that this application is going to have. As with all variance applications, we're going to look at both the positive and the negative criteria. We are here in the OSGU, Open Space Government Use District, where private schools are permitted conditional use, subject to 8 conditions. They're all dimensional in nature, and this application substantially complies with all of them. But for the height, the overall lot coverage complies, the overall building coverage complies, well below what is allowed on a massive campus. The setbacks on all sides comply as well. So the applicant's not asking for relief relative to the overall size of the building in terms of its coverage and the positioning of the building with respect to setbacks. In terms of the positive criteria, again, we're dealing here with the test under Coventry Square, which is a more relaxed test than this board may ordinarily hear when you're dealing with the Medici test for a wholly prohibited use. This is a permitted use in the zone as a private school, dealing with grades 7 through 12. And we're looking at, on the positive side here, again, the use per se is not at question. It's a question of the focus is on the conditions and purposes behind those height controls, which we all know are light and air controls. This is not going to create a building that is imposing or obtrusive in the overall context of the landscape, as you saw through all of the visual evidence that's been given to you by the witnesses before me. In terms of the positive criteria, I'm looking at multiple purposes of zoning that are advanced here, including Purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare, enhancing a community asset, enhancing the living environment, all of those improvements that you heard both architecturally and engineering-wise that will improve the overall campus with what the applicant is doing, modernizing and upgrading the student center. That all goes towards adding value and quality to a community asset. Likewise, Purpose G, the planning goal for a variety of uses, in appropriate locations. This is an appropriate location because the use is there, and it's just an upgrade of that which is already manifested on the campus. Likewise, purpose I, I'll take you back to Steve's exhibits that you just saw. This is going to beautify the overall campus environment, a nice, attractive, modern building. Again, that will add value and quality. That goes towards purpose I under the land use law as promotion of a desirable visual environment. And then lastly, purpose M in the land use law is our planning goal for efficient use of land. This is an infill or a retrofit of previously developed land on this campus. Again, we think that the applicant is moving this in a positive direction in that as well. With respect to the negative criteria, we're going to look first at the height here. Again, the relief is for 47.5 feet being the height of the building, where 35 feet would be the maximum allowed. That's part of your D3 conditional use relief that the applicant is seeking. Likewise, on the downhill side, we rise to 4 stories, where 2.5 would be the maximum allowed. Visually, the building will be only 3.7 feet at its peak relative to the existing building, well below that tree line that you see engulfing the entire campus on both the uphill and the downhill side. Functionally, the upgrades are intended to serve the current population, and as you've heard over and over again, this is not intended to increase the student population, but serve the population that's there. And then we're going to look at the purposes of height control that would come out of the Grasso case. There's some interplay here between this Coventry Square case, of which pertains to conditional use relief, and also for height relief as articulated in the Grasso case, where we look at the purposes of height control and whether any of those are violated. Number one, this is not going to create an imposing structure that is going to block scenic views or create negative shadow effects on any homes or any residences. They're so remote, we're dealing with a pocket here. So we think that aspect of the Grasso test is met. Also, again, for all of the reasons given, we're not creating a structure that's going to overpower the area visually or otherwise. The added height does not generate a population that will exceed the carrying capacity of the land. Water, sewer, parking, traffic are all within the carrying capacity of the land, notwithstanding this additional building height. And then lastly, this additional height does not give this property an unfair height advantage with respect to other properties. We're not raising the building up to create runoff on other properties. Again, that's all part of the plan here that Andrew has put before you. So we're not redirecting runoff. So again, visually or functionally, there'll be no impacts of a substantially adverse nature here. On the positive side, the board may also give deference to the fact that we are dealing with a school. Where we're dealing with a use variance, we'll be looking at a use that automatically serves or satisfies the positive criteria as an inherently beneficial use. Notwithstanding that, we think the positives, for the reason I've just given you, substantially outweigh any of the negatives. The lower category of relief are those 2C variances. Number one for the slope relief, which would relate to that grassy pocket, again, that you see from the uphill ring road to the lower parking lot. This site is going to be stabilized in accordance with sound engineering practices, which will meet the planning intent behind steep slope control. And then lastly, as I said, that wall is going to extend right at the property line, just beyond this tree line that you see in the park. It's not going to be visually imposing. It's remote from people. You heard that there's no trails nearby, that this will create a visual nuisance or an otherwise unsightly structure. With that, we believe that the benefits of the application as a whole would carry down from the D relief to the C relief as well. And based on all the visual evidence before you, relief in the C regard can be granted without any substantially adverse impacts. Taking it all together, the project is going to enhance the educational environment of a community asset. There's really relatively minor relief here that will certainly have minimal, if any, impacts on the surrounding area. With that, based on all of the testimony, I believe the statutory criteria for relief are met, and approval is warranted.
Let me ask you this, Tom. Until 2020, the zoning ordinance in the township designated this area as OSGU and permitted churches and municipal facilities as well as schools. But it also permitted residential development, isn't that correct?
It did.
Now, in 2020, the governing body saw fit to change the ordinance to designate the area, or with respect to the OSGU zone district, it inserted bulk or dimensional requirements that didn't exist before.
That is correct.
And in terms of it not existing before, the prior ordinance allowed many uses in the OSGU zone, but it had 0 dimensional or bulk standards. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And you ever see that anyplace else?
Rarely, if ever.
And that gave the planning board tremendous amount of discretion with respect to how they approached the bulk requirements.
I remember that with the field house for sure.
In 2020, the governing body saw fit to change that. Would it be fair to say that with respect to the height standard that's been implanted in the OSGU zone district, that the purpose of it was to protect against governmental or school or houses of worship being so high next to residential development as to overpower them and be not consistent with good planning, having a tall building next to a residential development? Isn't that, would that be fair to say that that was the intent of that?
I think that would be a fair assessment of the legislative intent, yes.
And in terms of this particular proposal, there's no residence that's ever going to be seeing any of this. Isn't that correct?
Not in the near future, that's for sure.
Is that why, when you get right down to it, that the variance is appropriate?
That's the bottom line, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Any questions? Any questions?
I would just note, to get, they were just speaking about the intent of the ordinance. And when this was recommended, this change was recommended in the 2017 reexamination report, which was to provide conditional use standards for both schools and houses of worship in several zones, including OSGU. So when our office was working on those, what we did is we really looked at, what the typical heights of schools within the township, because really, as was the case then and as is now, the campus did have buildings higher than that, but it remained an outlier. It was an outlier then, it was an outlier now. And so, the goal was really to just make sure that it stayed consistent within the most of the schools that are existing in the township. So this is a case where it was rendered non-conforming by that standard, and that's why they're before this board tonight seeking the D3. But I think the testimony that's been presented has really has approached that from the context of the D3 variance, and you're really looking at whether the site can accommodate the additional height, and whether there's any conditions that could be imposed. If not, but I think in this case, I agree with the testimony generally that's been presented. So I think, it's up to the board to determine if they have any further issue.
Thank you. That's right. Okay, good. All right. Given that, board members, any other questions? Members of the public, any questions? If not, I'll close the public portion. Mr. Hanson, you have any questions? Okay. Thank you. Any other witnesses?
We do not, unless the board has some questions that could be answered by others. We think that's the presentation that we'd like to submit to the board.
Okay. Well, having been to the site, having seen,
Comments from the public?
is there any comments from the members of the public? Thank you. Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. From my point of view, the impact will be minimum, if any. Unless you know exactly where you're looking, you will never see this building from anywhere in Lewis Morris Park. I've been down that hill from Del Barton all the way down to those parking lots. I've walked down there, walked back up, not this weekend, but in other times. So I know what I'm looking at. and I knew exactly where to look at, and you can only see it from like this 10-foot window, basically, at that dog park, so that the impact would be minimal. It would certainly benefit the general welfare. It's a needed upgrade for the school. It is basically in line with the existing structures on the building, and the only reason these variances are needed is because of the slopes and the topography of the area, and therefore I would be all in favor of approving this application. Welcome to hear from other board members.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say one thing. Mr. Alato referenced the field house application. That was before the planning board. Mr. Newmark, I remember, I think it was about 15 sessions, and there was loads and loads of people from the public, objectors. And as we can see, there were none here tonight. So I think in general, we don't need to worry too much about what the public concerns might be, because there's no one else from the public here. And to me, just like with that application, because I'm on both the planning board as well as the Board of Adjustment, the school is an important asset to the township, and we think that improvements like that will keep the school competitive, will keep the school from thinking about, can we continue to live here? I think it's an important asset that we continue to support to the extent that we can. And having been there yesterday and saw the improvements of the field house and the field and all the work that was done to get approval from the planning board, I was very pleased with what I saw. So like the chairman says, I'm in support of this application.
Thank you. Anybody else with anything to add? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. Make the motion to approve. I want to say I appreciate all of the responses to all the comments from the TCC, the Environmental Commission. We had it all in front of us beforehand, and that answered a lot of our questions. I don't know if there are specific conditions that we need to put as a part of this.
I can summarize the conditions that we talked about today. They were mostly referenced in the reports, which the applicant agreed to comply with. There would be, lights would be dark sky compliant. They'll follow the do not plant list. They'll stripe the parking lot, comply with the fire chief's report, comply with the environmental commission's report, obtain proper permits for draining the pool if that becomes necessary. I think that was it.
Those were all that I
Yeah.
can remember.
I'll make the motion, those conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So moved.
Well, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
And Marty, if you would have the transcript sent to me
Well.
when that's ready, I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll do that.
We got an early meeting next month.
Early me? Oh, yes. the
Yes.
9th.
Yeah, it's only
December
2
9th.
weeks.
Mhm.
Right.
I was gonna say, we're starting early so we can get through it.
We're starting at 2, so we can get out of here by 5.
All right.
Do
Any
we
other
have any
business?
applications for the next meeting?
No.
We have two.
We have one, we have
Two. We have two next
next
for
meeting.
December 9th, yeah.
We have 2 little ones and
I
then
think the small.
2 small ones, and then we have 40 Springbrook.
Oh, we do. Let me see.
Oh, we still have that?
Yes.
40 Springbrook, yeah. Let me see.
Okay.
Let me double
We're
check.
back again.
Oh,
again?
40 Springbrook.
Oh,
Only have
Same
to-
application or a new one?
So we have one application of 40 Springbrook.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.